Hey, greetings. Welcome to the next episode, the third episode, the current episode from my perspective, but the next from the perspective of the previous episode, and previous from the perspective of the next episode. I had a point, and I can't remember what it was. This is the podcast that I do, and presently I am folding my laundry. If I sound far away from the microphone, it's because I'm folding my laundry. If I sound distracted, that's because I always sound distracted. But I'm not here to talk about my laundry. I'm here to talk about my childhood. Here to indulge in some gentle nostalgia. I'm here to talk about the model cars that I built one year. You may be thinking, Miles, why are you talking about model cars? Do you build model cars? No. I will never build another model car. I don't have the time or the space, or the discipline, or the materials, or the desire to acquire the time or materials. The space I want to acquire at some point, but not so I can build model cars. I don't know why I would put there, but space is good. That's why we went to the moon. I built these model cars. They were given as gifts because I was really into cars when I was in my tweens. I think this was in 2008. Yeah, it was I hadn't started the 6th grade yet. It was over the summer, and the first Transformers movie had come out, which is important to the story, but the Chevrolet Camaro revival had not come out. Because the car I was building, one of them, I had two cars. They were both muscle cars. One of them was the Camaro concept, and the other one was a Shelby GT500. Which, for those of you who aren't aware, is a Mustang, but faster and with a bigger engine. Not in that order. The speed comes from the bigger engine. So I had these model cars, and I set up my desk, and I bought all these materials. I got the paints, and the glue, and the X-Acto knife, and this cover, this plastic cover that I could drape over my table. My desk, The chemicals I used, I don't know what happened, but it left bits of that plastic cover on my desk such that I could vaguely read the instructions, the imprint, the ghost of those instructions years later, which is vaguely symbolic of the entire process. I didn't have to do anything, but they were gifts, and I was excited. I'd never built a model car before, and gosh darn it, it showed. It was I kept them for years, on a shelf, not looking at them, not being able to throw them away because they represented part of my innocence, but not looking at them because they were aesthetically unpleasing. And, it wasn't that they were bad, it just was, I'm not the kind of guy, especially at that age, because I was young and I didn't have the attention span, and eventually I got bored, Eventually, I could only take so much of it, because it's very detail-oriented work building model cars. The pieces come on these sprues, and you have to cut them out with the X-Acto knife, and be careful not to slice your own thumb open, which I may or may not have done at least once. And you gotta arrange them carefully, you gotta put things on top of other things, and some pieces are really small, so you can't lose them or break them. I think I built the engine backwards. For the Mustang, that was the second car I built. I did the Camaro first and the Mustang second because that was the order they interested me in. And I built the engine backwards. I don't actually know how I pulled that off. I burped there, I'm sorry. I don't know how I pulled that off. I think I built the bottom of the engine, I built the top of the engine separately, and I installed the top engine. I installed that the wrong way. And then I tried to stick the whole shebang into the automobile, but it didn't fit because it was wrong. I don't even know how I got it in there eventually. I think I might have just hacked away at the edges with the X-Acto knife until I got it to just sort of just squeeze in there, and I was like, yep, this is acceptable. And that was my entire experience building model cars. Yep, this is acceptable. Once I got done piecing the entire thing together, you know what? Should I have painted it first? It actually might have made more sense to paint the entire thing and then wait for the paint to dry and then build it, instead of trying to paint the finished product. Why don't they do it in factories? I went to a Ford factory once, and I don't remember, I think they painted it afterwards. But, in the Ford factory, they have robots, and robots can be precise to within millimeters of an inch. And I can't be. Especially not when I'm, 11 years old and daydreaming about whatever it was I was daydreaming about at the time. Probably Transformers. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the car, the model car. I installed the engine backwards. But I got the entire thing together. All the chromey bits I got with minimal scraping of chrome. And all of the transparent bits I got without scratching them up. And then I had to paint the dang thing and apply decals. And I'm not sure which was worse. Because painting was tedious, but it was a relatively simple thing. You paint, you apply coat after coat, you're thorough, you're very detailed, you're very methodical. Of course, I didn't do any of those things. I think I applied like a coat and a half and got bored, and I ended up in my, when I had to look at it later, I ended up with a splotchy mess of a paint job, but it was okay because I did it myself with my own two hands and I was young. And how did I paint the engine? How did I paint the inside of the car? I think the outside of the car must have been like a shell that went around the body of the car so I could paint the bits on the inside, including the seats. And yeah, that must be right. Now, the reason the Transformers movie is important is because my deco for the Camaro was based on the deco of Bumblebee, who was a Transformer in the movie, who turns into a Camaro with racing stripes. So, I could have done anything. I could have plotted it out with racing stripes. I could have plotted it out with a pencil and a ruler and a straight edge. I don't think I could have made a stencil because that would have required more preparation than I was willing to put into, but I could have done that. I might do that now if I were to do it over. I could have foregone it and done something simpler. But instead I wound up with a splotchy yellow paint job, and on top of the splotchy yellow paint job, I have these ridiculous, crooked, uneven sort of slabs of black just running the length of the entire car. And don't get me started on decals. Bad enough that I had these ridiculous splotchy paint jobs, but now I had to, and the decals, if I remember correctly, it's been many years. I forget if it was water or turpentine, but I think it was water because I used the turpentine for something else. But you wet the decals, and then you applied the decals. And again, millimeters of an inch. You have to put the Chevy logo on the grill just so, or else you end up with the plastic mold of a Chevy logo, and then the golden bit of a Chevy logo is somewhere else. It's very particular. And you have to, the Shelby had racing stripes. The Mustang had racing stripes, and that was the worst part, because they were huge decals. They were huge decals. And decals, once you got them wet, were incredibly delicate, so they would tear, which made it, applying the racing stripes, that was just a barrel of laughs and a half. But I guess at the end of the day, it's alright. I had these two things, and I had made them with my own hands and my limited reserves of patience and my limited reserves of skill. And I could say that this is a thing I made. And there's a certain pride that comes in making things, in finishing things. And that's alright, I mean, obviously, if you make just trash, it's trash, but it's your trash. And you finished it through to the end, which is commendable in its own right. It's commendable in its own right. Those were good days. Childhood. I could sit here and reminisce about my childhood for hours, but eventually you would get bored and go do something else. So I'm going to, I would get bored and do something else. start talking about, oh, hey, the fire trucks are going. And there goes the ambulance out of the fire truck station. The fire station. Yes, that place. What am I talking about? Fire trucks, right. Sometimes you gotta go and build a fire truck and say, yeah, this was the product of my labor. And that's alright. People need fire trucks. They save lives. You gotta be proud of what you do. Anyway, I'm out of laundry, so I guess that's where I'm going to call the episode. Good talk. Good talk. I'll see you later.